Welcome to Dog Walk Story Hour, Episode 1. Today's co-host is a friend of mine named Luna, who really loves to smell the air coming out of the sewers, even when it's cold, like today. I want to talk a little bit about innovation. There's lots of entrepreneurs who know this statement. Innovation always comes from the outside. And that is often true, but there's also, I would say, two other scenarios that at least I'm familiar with. One of them is related to U-Haul, where some people realized they needed to move furniture and belongings and they didn't personally own a truck. They weren't in the trucking business or the moving business, but it occurred to them that since they were willing to lift their own furniture and stuff and they didn't have their own big trailer or truck themselves, that maybe other people had the same problem. And so that was the beginning of a business model and a service that's helped a lot of people in the world. Another version of innovation is where someone recognizes that there's an established system in one industry and they can transfer the logic of that to a different industry completely. And so that story is, again, familiar probably to lots of you, where drive-through restaurants didn't used to exist. Drive-through banks did. And someone said, wait a minute, if we can let people come through a spot to do what they need to do with depositing checks and getting other banking things done without getting out of their vehicle, well, maybe that could happen with food also. But this is a story about another kind of innovation where it doesn't come totally from the outside. Somebody has pre-existing serious expertise, a foundation of knowledge, but they're also open-minded enough or in a jam enough to inspire them to problem solve in a new way. And that is the context of the innovation of straw bale gardening. So Joel Karsten is a guy who spent his childhood gardening with Grandma Josephine, learned all kinds of great stuff from her, even though it was all self-taught and learned through apparently the information that she read also in the gardening seed catalogs and just her own practical real-life experience. And then Joel had that as his base, went to college, got a real proper formal education in horticulture, learned all kinds of stuff, thought he'd be going back to work on the farm in his adult life, and then instead ran into a situation where he had bought a house that didn't have good soil, and he desperately wanted to grow a garden. As a former farm kid, as the grandson of Grandma Josephine, and as a pragmatic, sensible kind of guy. Look out, Luna, we gotta get away from the cars. And so Joel hit this moment of frustration because unfortunately, only after he'd bought the property did he discover that there was no good dirt, no good soil in the backyard of that house. And the only way he'd be able to grow a garden, which he really, really wanted to do, was to truck in a whole bunch of expensive new soil and buy a bunch of expensive wood to build raised beds. And that wasn't in reach for him at that time. So the moment of frustration became an awesome moment of innovation. And as innovation stories typically have, there were a bunch of naysayers, right? People who said, nah, that couldn't possibly work. You know, if that would work, somebody else would have done it already. If that would work, it would invalidate some of our assumptions about all the best ways to grow. But the truth is, straw bale gardening does work. It works so well that there are people doing it all over the world. And, you know, it only took a couple of decades to prove that to a bunch of people. You can grow with a whole lot less manual labor. You can grow with a whole lot less bending and leaning and kneeling. You can grow with no digging at all. You can grow with no soil at all because you can do straw bale gardening on a balcony, on a patio, on a driveway, on a sidewalk, on tree roots, on ground that has solid rock underneath it. So many places straw bale gardening makes it possible for people to become gardeners, happy gardeners, successful gardeners, because it's so easy and it almost guarantees success as much as we ever can with anything that involves Mother Nature. So innovation happens in at least three ways, I think, not always, quote, from the outside. And strawberry gardening is one of those innovations that came from somebody that had a bunch of expertise on more than one level, but who hit a moment of frustration, of need to come up with a better way. And that is what happened. Joel found a better way, or at least another way that people can use to grow their own food when they otherwise wouldn't be able to do it in the traditional method, digging in the ground. Innovation happens all the time, and you can appreciate it when you see it. You can maybe recognize opportunities for you to do it, because that is part of what humanity is awful darn good at, innovation. Click the link, learn all about the geeky science of strawberry gardening, and more about Joel's origin story, and even how we have humanitarian opportunities for this method being part of the solution for ending world hunger. Click the link.